They called him weak, so a disappointment, but Liam had only ever tried to be himself. And in a house where being a man meant walking like his father, speaking like his grandfather, and erasing every part of himself that felt different, being himself felt like rebellion. Liam was 22, but his heart had learned to whisper much earlier. In a small town nestled in the middle of Texas, where boys were born to hunt, fight, and follow orders, Liam chose to dance, or at least he used to, before his mother died, before silence moved in and took her place. The house he grew up in was painted in medals, discipline, and pictures of men in uniform. His father, Colonel Royce, had one definition of pride, and Liam didn't fit inside it. Every time Liam brought home a drawing, it was torn. Every time he picked up a paintbrush, it was snapped in two. Royce believed pain made boys stronger. So when Liam asked to audition for a ballet scholarship, Royce laughed. Then he cut the tuition. Liam used to sneak out to the community art studio. There, among dust and echoes, he could sketch without judgment. But that ended too. His father found the sketches. He didn't yell, he burned them. Liam watched colors turn to ash, and something inside him turned cold. Coach Dale, Royce's best friend and the head of the summer military program, soon invited Liam to enroll. Not in a way one could refuse. It was made clear either Liam became a soldier or a stranger in his own home. The town had always looked at Liam like he was the soft thread in a hard fabric. Mothers whispered, boys laughed behind his back, and yet he never fought back. Not with fists, but he did fight with silence, with kindness, with colors no one wanted to see. The only one who ever held him and said, "You are exactly who you are meant to be," was his mother. And she was now part of the wind that passed through the empty hallways. On the night before the military program, Liam sat on the floor of his room. Around him were his last sketches, his secret stash. He held a lighter. One by one, he fed them to the flame. Hands shaking, breath uneven, eyes dry. The room smelled of paper, fire, and surrender. He was trying to erase the only thing that made him feel real. Then there was a knock. He turned. The door opened slowly. It was Chloe. She hadn't changed much. Strong, steady, with eyes that didn't flinch. She had been his childhood friend, the only one who never made him feel small. Now she wore the uniform of a military medical intern, back from her rotations. She stepped in without asking. Her gaze fell on the burning pile, then on him. She crouched down and didn't touch him. Just watched the last page curl into smoke. "You can't burn your heart and expect the fire to forget it," she said. Liam didn't answer. He couldn't. She added, softer this time, "You don't need to fit their mirror. Yours is enough." Outside, the cicadas screamed. Inside, Liam looked at the empty floor, where his art had once lived, and whispered, "Tomorrow, I become someone I'm not." Chloe stood. "No," she said, turning toward the door. "Tomorrow, you survive, but don't forget who's inside." And she left. The door closed. The smoke lingered. The boy who used to dance sat in silence, heart still burning, long after the flames were gone. If you believe stories like Liam's matter, stories of identity, courage, and the quiet war within, follow us at Heart Story for more real voices in a world that still forgets how to listen. The heat wrapped around Liam like a punishment. Central Texas in midsummer didn't forgive softness. Neither did the men barking orders at Camp Resolute, a place where boys were carved into soldiers, or discarded. Day one had been nothing but shouting. His name wasn't even used. Just "you" spat with disgust, as if he were a stain. When he folded his socks too neatly, they called it fussy. When he hesitated during drills, they screamed, "princess." Each word sharpened into a blade that cut the same wound: you are not enough. Liam shared a room with Miles Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved by wind and fire, the son of the head instructor. Miles didn't say much. But when he did, it was blunt, dismissive. He barely looked at Liam the first week. "You're here for real?" Miles asked once, as Liam laid out his toothbrush with care. "I didn't exactly get a choice," Liam replied quietly. "That makes two of us." That night, Liam couldn't sleep. While the others dreamed of medals and marching bands, he stared at the ceiling and saw strokes of charcoal, curves of bodies in motion, fragments of color he could no longer put on paper. Except he could. He waited until the lights were off. The snoring began, and the footsteps outside the barracks faded. Then he crept into the old equipment shed behind the mess hall. It smelled of sweat and metal, but it had a wall, an untouched concrete wall, using broken brick and a stub of charcoal. He drew, not for long, just enough. A hand, reaching, a foot poised midair, a spine arched in defiance. His sketches whispered louder than his voice ever could. But on the third night, someone found him. Coach Dale. He didn't speak, just grabbed Liam by the collar and dragged him into the rain. Orders were barked. "Hold position. Stay still." So Liam stood, for hours, drenched, cold, alone by morning. His skin ached, and his legs trembled, but he didn't cry. That part had burned away long ago. Chloe saw him limping into the infirmary. She didn't ask what happened. She just brought out the antiseptic, her hands calm, her silence heavier than any reprimand. "I won't report it," she whispered, wrapping his elbow. "But stop giving them reasons to break you." "I didn't think drawing was a reason." Chloe paused, then said, "To men like them, being yourself always is." Back in the barracks, Miles said nothing at first. But when lights went out, Liam found his bed untouched. Miles sat on the other side, looking at something. A scrap of paper, a sketch. One Liam must have lost in the shed. It was Miles asleep, drawn with care, not mockery. Quiet strength in every line. Miles didn't speak for a while, then, finally asked in a voice different than before, "Do you ever wish you were someone else?" Liam didn't answer, but that night, for the first time, he slept without dreaming of fire. The injury came during a drill gone wrong. Miles had landed hard, his ankle twisted beneath him, pain written across his clenched jaw. The others kept marching. Orders screamed above the dust. But Liam broke formation. He ran to him. The captain yelled. Liam didn't stop. He wrapped Miles's arm around his shoulders and helped him off the field. Step by step, breath by breath. Back in the barracks, Liam sat on the floor, pressing a wet cloth to the swelling ankle. His hands worked with gentle precision, the kind he once used on paper. Miles didn't flinch. He just watched Liam's eyes softer now, guarded still, but curious. That night, as the camp settled, the wind carried a faint melody. Liam had found the empty storage room again. There was no music, just rhythm in his breath, memory in his bones. He danced, alone in silence. He didn't know a phone had been recording, not until morning, when whispers swept through the mess hall like wildfire. A screen lit up, then laughter. Then jeers. There he was, Liam, in movement, not marching, but flowing, not shouting, but being. Someone shouted, "What is this, a ballerina at boot camp?" The video played again and again. By noon, everyone had seen it. And then he appeared, Colonel Royce. He stood at the center of the training field, his uniform stiff, face unreadable. Liam was dragged forward. No words, just a hand raised and a slap that cracked louder than any command. Gasps. The silence that followed held more weight than the blow itself. Liam didn't fall, but he didn't speak. He simply stared at his father with eyes that had no more space for shame. Then, a voice, clear, calm, and sharp. "You slapped the wrong person." It was Chloe. She stepped forward, her coat still stained from the infirmary, her badge half concealed by dust. She walked straight to Liam and took his hand in hers. Courage doesn't always scream, she said to Royce. Sometimes it dances. No one moved. Coach Dale looked away. Miles stood at the edge of the crowd, fists clenched, jaw tight. Later, in the infirmary, Liam sat on the table while Chloe cleaned the cut just below his cheekbone. He didn't speak, but his hands trembled. "I'm not just gay," he whispered finally. "I think I've always felt not entirely male, not entirely safe in this body, but I've never said it, not even to myself." Chloe didn't react with shock. Instead, she leaned forward, voice low. "In high school," she said, "I saw you in the auditorium once. You were trying on that costume, remember? The one from the spring play. A long velvet dress." Liam nodded slowly. "You looked in the mirror," she continued, "and cried. But not because you were ashamed. Because, for a moment, you saw peace." He exhaled, and it sounded like breaking. Outside, the sun set. Inside, Liam felt something begin, not like fire this time, but like the first breath after drowning. After the slap, everything shifted. Liam wasn't punished officially. There was no hearing, no written report, but the air around him thickened. Every glance became colder, every silence heavier. Where once there had been mockery, now there was something quieter, contempt wrapped in discipline. But not everyone looked away. Miles had started standing a little closer, not to speak, but to be present. When someone made a joke, Miles didn't laugh. When others sneered, he stepped forward, not loud, not dramatic, just forward. Then, one morning, Liam woke to find his locker empty, his sketches, the few left, gone. A quiet ache settled in his chest until a folded envelope slid beneath his door that night. Inside was a single drawing, his own returned, and a note in handwriting he recognized from shared meal rosters. "I couldn't let it burn. It mattered to me. No name, but it didn't need one." 2 days later, Miles didn't show up for morning drills. He had gone straight to the commander's tent and handed in his resignation from the program. The whispers spread fast. He walked out, refused to finish, said it wasn't what he signed up for. They called it cowardice, but Liam knew better. By evening, Chloe was summoned to the administrative office. She didn't return that night. The next morning, her name was removed from the infirmary door, dismissed, for violating professional boundaries. The message was clear. Protecting Liam had a price, and Chloe had paid it. But not without leaving something behind. In Liam's footlocker, beneath his folded uniforms, was a sealed folder, not a worn sketchbook. One he thought had been destroyed months ago. It was full his old ballet poses, abstract emotions, portraits of light and movement. And on the last page, drawn by someone else, was Liam in a flowing white costume, arms raised mid-leap. Free. There was a post-it pressed onto that final page. 4 words, written in Chloe's careful hand: "Don't forget the stage." Later that week, during lunch, a letter arrived for Liam, cream-colored envelope, New York postmark. Inside, a full scholarship offer to a prestigious performing arts school, anonymous sponsorship, a typed note at the bottom: "For the one who never stopped dancing in silence." The weight of it sank into his chest like truth, and he made a decision. On the final day of camp, cadets were called in one by one for the closing ceremony. Most wore crisp uniforms, polished boots, pressed collars. Liam arrived last. He stepped into the hall dressed in white, no medals, no stripes, a simple dance costume, sleeves soft as breath, fabric flowing with each step. There was no music. He didn't need it. He walked to the center of the stage, closed his eyes, and moved. Broken Shell wasn't just a performance. It was confession, memory, grief, defiance, and finally release. Not a sound in the room, Yisho, not a breath. When it ended, Liam stood in the silence, not waiting for applause, just existing. It was enough. Outside the building, a small crowd gathered around phones. Someone had recorded the performance. It was already online, already traveling. But Liam didn't stay to watch. He walked away, no rank, no father waiting, no uniform to define him, just the wind and himself. Months passed, autumn turned the world golden, and Liam began again. In New York, the air was colder, but it carried no judgment. The city didn't care how he walked or what he wore, and for the first time, Liam walked without apologizing. The performing arts school welcomed him like rain to drought. No one asked him to explain his softness. No one laughed at his lines. He moved with the grace he had once buried, and each time his feet struck the stage, it sounded like truth. Still, part of him remained tethered to Texas, to the ones who stayed, to the ones who left. Then, on a quiet Thursday, Chloe appeared. She stood in the wings of the rehearsal hall, coat still military, eyes still steady. Liam froze, then walked toward her. She didn't speak right away, just held out a coffee, warm in her hands. "I was the sponsor," she said finally. "The scholarship. I didn't want you to know, but then I saw the video, and I could not tell you anymore." He didn't cry, but something in him softened. "I used to think I loved you," Chloe added, "like a girl loves a boy, but it wasn't that." She looked at him, not his clothes, not his name, him. "I loved your light, your heart, not its shape." Liam didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing that felt right. "Thank you for seeing me, always." But Chloe wasn't the only one who had seen. A week later, after a solo performance at a student showcase, Liam stepped into the hallway and found someone waiting. Miles. He stood nervously, suit wrinkled, eyes tired from travel. "I saw the video," Miles said, voice low. "I left because of that day in the rain, but I never said why." Liam didn't interrupt. "I saw you," Miles continued. "Not just your drawings or your dancing. You, and I realized I'd spent my whole life trying to become a man someone else defined. But when I looked at you, I didn't see confusion. I saw someone whole." He took a breath. "I don't know what that makes me. But I know this. I love you. Not because of who the world says you are, but because you never asked me to be anything but myself." Liam stood still. Then he reached out and took Miles's hand. Not a performance, not a rebellion, just a beginning. Later that year, Liam performed Broken Shell again, this time on a larger stage. The video reached millions. It carried no explanation, only movement, emotion, and a line whispered at the end. It was Chloe's voice. Being a man was never the goal. Being whole, that was. People listened, and many wept, not for Liam, but for the versions of themselves they had silenced too long. And in a small town in Texas, someone watched the video alone. His uniform hung on the wall, his medals untouched. Colonel Royce didn't call, didn't write, but he watched it more than once. Have you ever been told to hide who you are, just to belong? Tell us in the comments below. Your story might be the light someone else needs. For stories that honor identity, healing, and the courage to be whole, follow us at Heart Story. You are never too much, never too little, only true.